Hi there everyone. So today we're trying something a little bit different. I'm still very new to this whole online thing, so I'm trying something a little bit different, and we'll figure out as we go. So basically, I've noticed as I've been on Facebook that a lot of my friends and family are starting to experiment with knitting, crocheting, all sorts of kind of crafty things. I had a friend of mine suggest that I do a loom knitting tutorial. And at first I was like, I don't know, there's already so many out there, there's no point. But I thought I would give you guys a loom knitting tutorial. But wait, there's more. I also have a little bit of a devotional message that goes along with the loom knitting tutorial that I'm going to at least attempt to give you. Before we head into that, I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of kind of the concept for anyone that hasn't heard of loom knitting, and go from there. I have a couple of examples to show you. So first I'll show you basically what a loom is and go over the concept, if you will. So I'll show you one of my looms as an example. So this here is a loom. They come in different sizes, different shapes. This is what a loom looks like when there's yarn on it. This here, this size makes you can use this you can use this size of a loom and the round loom to either make like what they call a tube scarf, or one thing that I like to make is the baby caps. Some people would maybe refer to this as a preemie cap. And I'll bring it up a little bit closer so you guys can see. The color might not show up as well just because of the camera I'm using, but it's all good. So this is like what the final product would look like. And this is kind of what it looks like when you're in the process of doing a project. I might make this into like a little mini series because I feel like if I try to cover everything all in one video, I don't know if you guys will have the attention span for that, and I don't blame you. So we'll kind of go like, I guess, one video at a time. Maybe I'll divide it into different parts and we'll go over like different projects that you can do. So yeah, we'll kind of see how this goes. I'll see what kind of response we get from this video. Maybe I'll make a little series out of this. We'll have to just see what the response is and kind of go from there. So, things that you'll need in order to loom knit. Let me just get some of this stuff organized here. So some things you're going to need. Obviously, you're going to need a loom. Now, these looms you can find at any local crafting store usually. You can order them online. Yeah, they're pretty easy to find. They can be a little bit pricey. I will admit, they are expensive. I would suggest, though, buying in sets instead of getting all the individual, because yes, it is a little bit expensive, but you'll have the set and you'll probably end up saving money at the end of the day by doing it that way. So the things you're going to need is a loom. You're going to need yarn. Now, depending on what loom you're using, that'll determine what thickness of yarn you want to use. For this loom here, you're going to want to use a thinner yarn. If you're using one of these looms, as you can see, the pegs are thicker, and I don't know if you can see, but that's about the thickness of yarn that you're going to want to use. You don't want it too thin, because then there'll be too many holes in your project. One way that you can get around it is if you only have thin yarn, then just use 2 spools and just like kind of attach them and then work from there. That's something you can do if you don't want to like go out and buy more yarn, because yarn is expensive. That is one thing I will say if you are entering into loom knitting or any form of knitting, crocheting, whatever. It can be a little bit of an expensive habit. But just look for the right deals and sales and stuff. And eventually, if you get into it enough, maybe your friends and family will give you craft store gift cards or spools of yarn for like Christmas and birthdays and what have you. So, and the thing is, I think we've come to learn over COVID-19 that if something interests you enough, you will find the time to invest in it. You will find the resources to invest in it. So it's kind of one of those things, it's not for everybody. So I would definitely encourage you to kind of experiment with it before just diving right into it. I think a lot of people, when they take up knitting and different things, they just automatically think like, oh, I'm going to love it. I'm going to go out and buy a bunch of stuff and do it. As much as I said to start off with a set, I'm starting to second think that. I would say start off with buying just a single loom. That way, if you end up not liking it, you can just give it to somebody else, donate it somewhere, sell it, whatever you're going to do. And then if you end up liking it, then getting a set would be the way to go. How I got into it personally, I never even heard of loom knitting until I was in high school. And they basically started a group during like the lunch hour. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then that Christmas, my parents had bought a set of looms. So, as I said, the things you're going to need: loom, yarn, you're going to need a thread needle. Now, these ones are different than your typical thread needles. These are kind of a plasticky material. And I'll kind of show you up close what it looks like. And you're going to need also a loom hook. Now, usually if you're buying a loom, like at a store, like at a craft supply store, it will usually include a thread needle and a loom hook. If it doesn't, you can get the loom hooks at like any craft store. Same with the thread needles, because I've had loom hooks wear out and break on me. So they are accessible, and once again, you can order online as well if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not a big online shopper, to be honest, but if you are, you do you. So I'm going to show you guys the different looms that I have and what I personally use them for. I've been loom knitting since I was in grade 9 or 10, and I've been out of high school for about a year now, so probably about a little bit more than a year. So that tells you how long I've been doing it, but I still wouldn't really consider myself like an expert on it. So this one here, I got at Walmart, and I use it to make, once again, kind of what I would call like a tube scarf. I also use it to make, I don't have any to show you guys, but I make little mittens that go on newborns, like the anti-scratch mittens. I don't know if I'm using the right term, but basically, for anybody that is new to the concept, babies, their hands might be tiny, but they have some sharp fingernails, and they grow really rapidly, and they like to grab their face, and sometimes they end up scratching it, and baby skin is very fragile. So a lot of parents will put little mittens over. They don't usually have thumbs or anything, it's just something to cover the hand enough so that way when they're touching their face, they're not going to scratch themselves up like an iPhone screen. So, not hating on any iPhone users out there, it's just a figure of speech. But anyway, so I use this to make those, and I've also made scarves out of them as well. On to the next loom. This one here, as you can see, I'm kind of in the midst of a project on it. I'm making, I haven't done what they call the brim of the hat yet, so this is the part that like folds. As said, I really don't want to try to shove everything into one video because I feel like it'll be kind of all over the map. So if you want a series and then you want to see how the rest of this works, comment below, email me, message me, I'm open to input. I don't want to just put aimless stuff on here. I want it to be stuff that will interest people. So that's what I have going on right now. I'm basically making a baby hat because I like to make the baby hats and donate them to like local nonprofits and stuff. So then we have this loom here. Now the looms that I'm showing you, this loom, and the other ones I'm about to show you, I actually got in a set. It was the very first set of looms that I got. This one here would make a hat for a baby that has a really big head, or any like small children, if you were making a hat. If you wanted to make like a bit of a wider tube scarf, you could probably do that as well. It's basically up to your judgment. This is probably going to be your most commonly used loom if you're making just regular adult toques. I, once again, don't have any to show you, but it's basically just a bigger version of this. And you can experiment with that as well. So this would make like your typical adult hat. And then we have this one. So this here you would use to make a hat for somebody that has like a really big head. Or you could also use, oh, I forget, I think it's like a infinity scarves, I think it's what it's called. I've never tried to make one, but you can make one out of that as well. On to the next one. This one here, it's made to, or it's meant to make baby socks and baby socks. I'm not sure how to do that yet. I'm still kind of in the midst of learning how to do that. But I also like to use this loom to make scarves. I do have a sample to show you guys. So basically you just make a long rope, if you will. This is how long it is. It's like really long. So as you can see, I've kind of used like a neon pink of sorts. I also have another loom. I'm not going to bother getting it in the shot because I'm also in the midst of a project on that loom, and it's kind of a pain to try to get it on camera. But it's basically, it's a really wide loom, and it's just like this. It's a rectangle, but it's really wide. Currently, I'm making a welcome, like a floor mat, for a couple friends of mine that just got a cottage recently. So I'm in the midst of making that for them. Just thought that'd be a nice little gift for them. So yeah, those are the looms that I have. And I would say for that as well, you could probably make like a baby blanket, or you can make one of those like decorative blankets that would go on like the back of like a lazy chair or something like, or lazy boy chair, I guess. Sorry. So there's all sorts of things you can do with looms. And as you can see, you can get looms in all sorts of different shapes, colors, sizes. One thing I would also say, if you're kind of new to this thing, you can join a lot of community groups on Facebook, and people can give you tips of how to find great deals on whatever supplies you need. You can also consult the employees in the craft stores. They're very friendly. I like going to Michael's sometimes to get stuff. As much as they are pricey, I will admit it's expensive in there. Don't go to Michael's if you're not looking to empty your wallet. It is expensive, but their customer service is great. Their selection is great. Their products, I've never had any issues with their products. And as said, when I was kind of new to this, I had a hard time like finding things. So, and I wasn't always very familiar with a lot of these craft stores. So the employees are very helpful in that regard. And as said, if you get connected with some other friends, maybe on Facebook or whatever, people can point you in the right direction as well. So I'm going to show you today basically how to start a project and basically just show you how to do basic stitching. As said, if I get a good response from this video, I will continue to make more videos as to like how to get the yarn like off the loom and that sort of thing. Like I'll kind of make a continuous series. I might show you how to make like different types of things. Like today I'm going to be showing you how to start a scarf, but maybe I'll keep like making more videos of how to do a hat and how to make the brim of the hat, which is the part that folds, like the part that would go on your forehead. I'm trying to explain the terminology because there's a lot of terms that maybe people that are new to it would not understand, which is completely fine. No judgment. So let's get started. So basically, as said, today I'm just going to show you guys how to start a project on a loom, and if I get a good response from that, then we will continue and kind of make a series out of this. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the yarn all straightened out. This is a partly used spool, that's why it's kind of going all limp. I'll just kind of set that over there. So if you're going to be loom knitting, you need to know how to do what I think it's called a slip knot. Correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong. But basically, this is how you're going to start pretty much all your projects. Whether you're making a scarf, hat, whatever you're making, this is how you're going to start. So you're going to take your yarn and basically, I would almost call this like, not to like, I don't know if blaspheme is the right word, not to like make fun of what I'm about to refer to, but you almost want to make like a breast cancer ribbon. I'm only using that reference to illustrate like what shape you want to go for, not to like glorify anybody going through that because it's terrible. But I'll kind of try to put this up a bit closer here. I'm going to move some stuff around to get this a little bit closer to the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. Another thing I'm going to warn you about as well is loom knitting does require a little bit of dexterity. And if you don't have dexterity, I'm not saying like don't do it, but it's going to require some patience. And some people are going to learn faster than others. Some people are going to learn not as fast, and that's okay. So as said, you kind of want to make like the shape of a breast cancer ribbon, which is ironic that I say that as I'm using neon pink yarn. But yeah, so you kind of basically just want to make a little loop like that. I don't know if you guys can see. And then you're going to take your shorter piece, because this longer piece is basically connected to your spool, which the spool is just the fancy term for all your yarn. And you're basically going to take this piece here and you're going to bring it through the loop and you're just going to pull it through. You don't want to pull it all the way through though, because your knot, you can't really see from a distance, but your knot is going to be here, and then you're going to have a little piece here, or at least you should. The slip knot can take a while to catch on to, and that's okay. So before I show you what is done with the slip knot, if you're using a round loom, let me find one that doesn't have yarn on it. This here is what you're going to be starting your project on, and this is called the anchor peg. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It holds everything in place, hence the name anchor peg. So basically what you would do, I'll show you a little bit just to give you an idea, if you were using a round loom, or even some of the rectangular ones do have pegs at the end, but this one does not, as you can see. But basically you would take your anchor peg and then the smaller piece of your slip knot, it just pulls like that. And then if you wanted to, like what I usually like to do is cut this a little bit just so I don't have this piece getting in the way. But warning, you don't want to cut this too far because then your knot will unravel and it'll mess everything up. I'm not speaking from personal experience at all. Anyway, so basically then what you would do is you would loop the yarn around, basically what I'm going to show you on this loom, and you would go from there. So I'm just going to quickly use my loom hook here and kind of loosen off that knot. So, sorry, I don't know if this video is really choppy. I've never tried to do any like tutorial videos, so I'm not really sure how this is going, but it's kind of something new. I try to change things up and not just do the same thing on this channel all the time, because I don't want people to like get bored and like stop watching the videos. Not that it's about entertainment, but it's kind of one of those things, like if you don't engage your audience, they're not going to keep watching. So as said, I like to always take a little bit and just, I don't want to cut it too far, but just cut it enough that this piece isn't going to get in the way the whole time. Cut it to about yay. And then I just have this little scrap piece I'll just set over there for now. We'll deal with it later. And by later, it'll probably be a couple weeks and I'll have like a pile of them and be like, oh, I need to throw those out. So there's a few different things that you could do with this if you wanted to get like really fancy, but I'm just going to show you guys the very basic. Yeah. So trying to figure out, I've been doing this for so long, I just know how to do it, but I'm trying to figure out how to like explain to, like I'm trying to basically act like you've never done it before, because there could be somebody watching this that maybe doesn't even know what I'm talking about. So you're going to take your yarn, you've now made your slip knot and have attached it to your first peg, or on a round loom it would be your anchor peg that I just showed you. And basically you're going to take your yarn and make sure that slip knot is really tight. Not like too tight, but yeah. So you're going to take your yarn, and I'm going to get a little closer to the camera here because this is very important. So I'm trying to think of how to explain this. Okay. So you're going to take the yarn and put it kind of behind the peg, your next peg here, and you're going to loop like that, and see how I'm kind of, as I'm looping, and then you kind of just go like that. See how I'm doing that? I'm doing it very slowly to kind of show you guys. So I'll just finish doing, you'll see here I'm doing it kind of fast. Keep in mind, like a lot of people that are starting off, they're going to be doing this and they're going to be like, oh no, I'm not doing it right, like I'm not doing it as fast as her. Like keep in mind, I've been doing this for like 4 or 5 years now, so it's not really, it's like I just know how to do it. But I remember when I first started loom knitting, when I was doing the rows like this, I'd be like doing it like really slow and having to like squint my eyes, and I'd be like, but then after a while, like as you can see, I'm having a conversation, I'm looking at the camera, thinking nothing of it. So your first row that you're going to do, you have to do this twice. So as you probably saw, I was pushing down. You want to push down that first row to the bottom, and then you just do a second row like that. Another thing too is I never really went public with my loom knitting stuff. This was kind of just something I did privately, but I felt led to share it. So obviously there's somebody out there that needs this. So this is when your loom hook, your handy dandy loom hook, comes into play. So you want to basically, I personally use my thumb to just hold down the yarn. What you would do, I'm just going to quickly do this so I don't have to hold that in place. Once you get your first peg done, that'll just hang there. So what you would do in the case of if you were using a round loom is when you, where's my anchor peg? Okay. So when you would get to this last part here, you would take your yarn and like just wrap it a few times around the anchor peg, and then it would hold it in place, and then you would put that bottom piece over and do that. As said, if I make a series out of these, basically what has happened with this one is I ran out of yarn, and I'm going to be starting a new color. And that's why you don't see any yarn attached to this, and you don't see any yarn on these pegs. But as said, I'm not going to bother making a series unless this is something that actually interests you guys. If I get more interest out of this, I will, by all means, I will make a series, but I want to make sure that there's actually interest before I film a bunch of videos. So, basically what you're going to do now is take your loom hook, and you're going to go around, and you're going to take, as you can see, there's two pieces. I'm trying to point here, but looking at the camera at the same time. So you have two pieces. You're going to take your bottom piece. Another thing as well, if you don't want to go out and buy looms, you can take like wood and you can put nails and stuff, but I would suggest just go out and get a loom. It's just easier for the reason that I'm about to show you. So it's kind of hard to see with the camera. I'm going to put my loom up to the camera really quick. I don't know if you guys can see, but the pegs, each of them have little like grooves in them, and I'm going to show you what that is used for. I'm just going to quickly pause and move some of the stuff off my, I'm filming on my bed. I don't really have another space to film at this time, so this is what we're using, but God provides. Anyways, so I'm going to quickly pause, move this stuff so I can get closer to the camera because you guys are going to need to see what I'm about to do. Alright, we're back. Sorry, I just had to move some stuff because you guys are going to need to see what I'm doing. So basically what you're going to do next, I'm sorry, I'm trying to explain this the best that I can, but I've never tried to do one of these tutorial videos. Really, ever since COVID for me, the whole COVID situation has forced me to do a lot of things that I would have probably never done before. But that's a good thing. Okay, and we are back again. Sorry guys, there was another little bit of an interruption there. Oh, the joys of trying to film videos in a house with multiple people. It's great. Anyways, as I was saying, what you're going to want to do is basically take your loom hook, and as said, there's little grooves in the loom. So you basically want to take your loom hook, and you're just going to come up from the bottom, and the little hook part will go in that groove. Makes things a lot easier, and you're just going to take that bottom piece and you're just going to loop it over like that, making sure that this piece does not go up with it, and then just push it down. So then you're going to do that to go around the whole thing. And as you can see, once again, I'm doing it like really fast. When you're first doing it, you're going to be like, you probably want to start off doing this at like a table, like have a level surface to work with. And then you eventually, the nice thing about knitting, once you get more like confident in it and experienced, like it is not uncommon for me to do this like while I'm watching Netflix or listening to music, listening to a podcast, listening to an audiobook, whatever you're doing. And it's a nice relaxing thing to do, but it's also very productive because, as said, you can like make stuff for family and friends, you can donate stuff to local charities or whatever. How I started donating to stuff was because after my first few projects, I'm like, I don't have room to just have all this Loom knitted stuff around the house. So I got a hold of different people and was like, hey, do you accept donations? And so it's kind of cool to think, like, that, you know, while you're just sitting at home watching Netflix and loom knitting or crocheting or needle knitting, whatever you're doing, that, you know, you can really help make a difference in your community as well. You're doing something that's relaxing but also productive at the same time. Because I think in the fast-paced society that we're living in right now, you're always torn between, like, you know, oh, I should take time for myself and do something relaxing, but I don't want to, like, not be productive and just waste time. So this is kind of a nice win-win, I find, because you're doing something relaxing, but you're also helping your community. You can make homemade Christmas gifts, which is always really nice. I like getting homemade gifts. I like giving homemade gifts. Because anybody can, like, I'm not discrediting if you go out and buy something. I'm not saying going out and buying stuff is bad. Like, I'll probably do a combination of using these as Christmas gifts and buying Christmas gifts as well. I'm not saying that buying stuff is necessarily bad, but I think nowadays we've kind of lost the art of, like, homemade gifts. And a lot of people think that, like, oh, if you spend more on something, that automatically makes it, like, a better gift, or that automatically shows that you love somebody. Like, I see a lot of commercials near Christmas time where, you know, you'll have jewelry stores where they'll be like, show your spouse that you really love them and spend, like, $1,000 on this thing. And it's like, I'm not saying it's bad to buy nice jewelry for your spouse. That in of itself is not bad. I'm just saying that, you know, the fact is, if your marriage is falling apart, spending more money on jewelry is not going to fix it. You have to get down to the root of why your relationship's having problems. I'm not saying that all people buy jewelry just because they're having marital issues. That's not... but you guys hopefully get the point that I'm trying to make here. Like, spending more money on somebody doesn't just necessarily, like, automatically make your relationship better. And I don't know about y'all, but for me, throughout coronavirus, I've really reevaluated my close connections and stuff like that, and have been trying to be intentional about spending time with people I care about, obviously in, like, a safe and responsible way, with, like, social distancing and all that stuff, or, like, online video chatting and what have you. But I personally find that the people in my life that are close to me are not close to me because, oh, you bought me fancy stuff, or you spent an insane amount of money on me. They're the people that were there when I needed to vent, were there when I needed a shoulder to cry on, were there when, like, I was having a good time, when things are going well, all that stuff. The people that gave me wise advice, guided me through life experiences, that sort of thing. Not necessarily the people that just bought me material possessions. And I think nowadays society is trying to tell us that, you know, oh, if you buy your spouse or your friend or whatever a material possession, it's going to automatically make them love you more. Well, first of all, if they're only loving you because of material possessions that you're buying them, maybe you should reevaluate that relationship. That's not what I was making this video about. Somehow I got on that rant. I don't know. Anyways, the point is, I think I started off by talking about homemade Christmas gifts, and then I got on this rant about the commercialization of holidays and things like that. So, as you can see, I'm experienced enough that I am doing this. I wasn't even planning on doing multiple rows, but you just kind of get into a rhythm, and you will find that, like, after a few projects, you can see I'm doing this pretty quickly, but when you first start, your hands are all shaky, you're all nervous, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm doing this right, and I used to hold my loom hook like this, and I'd be like, and I, like, couldn't do it. I would suggest holding your loom hook like a pencil, basically, and it's more comfortable on your hand. Another tip as well, don't loom knit for too long, because you're you're holding on to the loom, you're holding on to your loom hook, you're doing the motion, and repetitive motion of any kind can cause issues if you have like chronic pain or whatever. Also, usually when you're loom knitting, you're sitting down, and obviously like sitting for too long and not getting up and moving is not good for your body. So make sure that you take breaks. As much as it's a fun thing, you do want to make sure that you take breaks, so that way your wrist doesn't start hurting. Basically, if you start to feel a little bit of like wrist pain, take a break. Don't overdo it. And obviously get up, take breaks, that sort of thing. But you will find that after a while, if you are into it, that you will get better, you'll get faster at it. So basically, when you're making a scarf, I wouldn't suggest starting off with a scarf. You'll get bored, because literally you just keep doing that until it gets to be like really long. And so it's very tedious. It can be very boring, even for somebody that's experienced. I would suggest starting off making a baby cap. The reason why I say this is because it's a basic project, it's very easy, and it doesn't use a lot of yarn. Because I would not suggest going out and buying a bunch of yarn just in case you get into it and then you realize that loom knitting's not for you. Yeah. And so it doesn't use a lot of yarn. And not only that, but I guarantee you will mess up your first project. I'm not saying this to, like, scare you or discourage you in any way, but everyone messes up their first project. Everybody does. It's just a fact of life. And you don't want to go wasting yarn, because as said, yarn is expensive. Basically, the three words of any form of crafting: yarn is expensive. Yarn is expensive. You'll probably, honestly, I guarantee some meme, like, person that makes memes on the internet is gonna watch this video and make a compilation of me saying yarn is expensive, or we should have a little, if I knew how to edit this, and I would be so tempted to edit a little thing in the bottom of the screen here of like how many times I say yarn is expensive. But anyways, the point is, I would suggest starting off with a small project. You're not going to get too overwhelmed, because if you start off, a scarf is a little bit, it's like, I would say, a moderate project. It's not big, but it's not small. You're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to get bored, you're not going to want to loom knit anymore. You're going to be like, yeah, good luck with that. Whereas if you start with this, it's something kind of small, basic, easy, doesn't take long to do. If you were to sit down and make a hat like this and not take any breaks, it's going to take you probably a couple hours. I think the shortest amount it's taken me is like an hour and a half if I was like really rushing at it. But for a beginner, it would probably take a few hours. But as said, it doesn't use a lot of yarn, so then if you do end up messing up, you're not wasting yarn. It's not that big of a deal. Where if you're making a scarf and you mess up, you're using up quite a bit of yarn, and you're going to feel really terrible about it. So I would suggest just starting off making a hat like this. I know I call these the baby caps, but they can also be used for dolls as well. So if you know any children amongst your family and friend group, you can also give these as gifts to children to use for like their dolls or different things like that. So there's that as well. As said, there's so many options, and that's why I'm tempted to just make a series out of this, because I feel like that would be a lot more beneficial. So I've done about, I would say, 3 or 4-ish rows, and as you can see, it's already starting to come through, and it'll just kind of go like that. And it'll keep going into a long rope. I call it a rope. I don't know if that's the proper term, but that's what I call it. So there you have it. So for each row, you're basically just going to do the same thing. You're just going to keep looping around like that. It's very tedious sometimes. And then once again, taking your loom hook and just looping the bottom over like that. And that's how you do your stitching. So now we're heading into the devotional aspect of this. And I know what you're thinking. How are you making a devotional out of loom knitting? Well, you'll find out. So, as I've loom knitted over the past few years, I've learned a lot of things from loom knitting. Not just about the craft itself, but I've kind of learned some life lessons from it. Number 1, loom knitting requires a lot of patience. And life requires a lot of patience. So as you can see, the stitches are showing more because it's starting to come through the loom. So today's message, if you will, basically, as said, loom knitting, like life, requires a lot of patience. I'm not saying this to scare you or to turn you away from it, because it is really fun, but at first it can be kind of overwhelming when you're taking on a new project. Sometimes when you're starting, as said with a scarf, it's considered a bit of a bigger project, or that welcome mat I'm making. It's fun and all, but I think I bit off more than I could chew, but we will make it work. So as you can see, this took a lot of work. It took a long time to make. I forget when I started this. I can't really count the actual time though, because there's the amount of time it would have taken if I would have just sat down and did it all in one shot. But of course, working full-time and stuff, obviously I didn't even work on it every day, so I can't even determine that. But as you can see, all these little stitches here, that took a lot of work and a lot of patience. And basically, I'm starting one of these. And right now, it doesn't look like much has been accomplished. You want to know why? Because not much has been accomplished. It's very tedious. And sometimes when I start a new, scarf, for instance, on this loom, I'm excited, but after a few rows, I get a little bit overwhelmed, and I'm like, oh no, what am I doing? Especially if I'm on a timeline, and I'm making a scarf for somebody, and I'm trying to kind of make it as fast as possible so they're not waiting. I think we all get like that in life, where when we start a project, we're so eager and we're like, let's go. And then we get a little bit of the way through, we start to get kind of bored of it. And not to keep bringing up COVID, but I think that's kind of what's happening with coronavirus. Because I remember when we went into lockdown, originally they had only said that we were going to be, that things were going to be closed for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. And so a lot of people were like, oh, cool, I'll just use it as a little staycation. I'll, clean up my house, And we were so eager to just, okay, I'll watch some Netflix, that's fine. And I think it's a lot, it's similar, right? Personally, when I start a new loom knitting project, I'm eager to get going. I'm like, let's start this project. But then as the weeks and the months progressed, we're like, okay, novelty's wore off, can we leave our homes now? And I think it gets like that when you're doing a rather large loom knitting project. You kind of get a few rows in and you're like, ooh, this is getting kind of boring. Are we done yet? Are we there yet? It's like being on a road trip, are we there yet? But then you get to the end, you finish whatever you're making, and you look at it and you're like, whoa. And you just feel this sense of pride. You're kind of proud of what you've done. You feel this sense of accomplishment. And I always find it crazy. When I'm looking at a final product, I'll look really closely. I'll focus in with my eyes and I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I did every single stitch of this. scarf or hat or whatever I'm making, in this case a scarf, I'll be like, I can't believe that I did that. And then you look on the scarf and you can see where the little slip knot would have been, right? Like what I showed you guys how we start. And you're like, it started here and it ended here. And I did all of this in between. For any kids that are in school right now, maybe you feel the same thing. I know when I was in college and I got my syllabus at the beginning of the semester. In a way, it was very exciting to, enter into the new content, but it was very overwhelming because literally every single due date for the whole semester was right in front of you. And you're looking at that and you're like, how are we gonna do this? And it can be the same feeling. You're like, how am I gonna make such a long scarf? How am I gonna do that? But if you stay the course, once again, you practice patience, you will get to the end and you will be very proud of what you've done. And I think that this message could have not come to me at a better, sorry, I don't know if I'm wording that right. Couldn't have come at a better time for me. Because I think a lot of us have heard the health experts on TV talking about how they've been using the term COVID fatigue, and kind of how like people are starting to like let their guard down a little bit and are kind of becoming desensitized to the restrictions and just all the different stuff. And because we've been in this battle for 6 months, people are kind of like slacking off when it comes to the health guidelines and that sort of thing. And I think it's tempting to do that with a lot of things in life. Often when we're taking on a project, whether that be with, like in our case, loom knitting, whether that be maybe you get a new job, whether that's like whatever it is, and you're always eager when you first start, but then when you see how much work it is, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I should have done this. But then you get to the finish line and you're like, whoa, look what has happened. So, as said, loom knitting has taught me a lot more than just how to make a hat or a scarf. It's taught me patience. Another thing that I've noticed with loom knitting as well, just in terms of like spiritual concept, I guess, I don't know what term to use, is kind of how our life progresses. And I've looked at it as, sometimes different life events, like things that happen to us, different circumstances we go through, and how we kind of build up to different like moments or milestones in life. And kind of, I find it like when I look at this scarf here, right? How I was telling you guys how I can see from the beginning to where I started to where I finished. And how you see every single stitch in between. And those stitches started off as just little pieces. Like, I'll show you guys. So, if we make another row here, so I'm going to literally just do one stitch and show you guys what I mean. So this one stitch here, okay? Taking the loom hook, done. Seems like a very minute thing, right? Just one little stitch. Well, I did that, I don't know how many times. And as said, about midway through, it was getting a little bit repetitive, a little boring. Not that I don't enjoy loom knitting, but it can get boring. That's another reason why you want to take breaks too, so you don't like drive yourself insane. Especially when you're first starting, you're not going to have as much of an attention span for it. But anyways, so basically, you're doing all these little stitches. It's kind of a routine, right? And you're doing like, the one little stitch. And I kind of think of all these stitches as like, you know, life moments that happen, whether they're good or bad, and kind of how they all end up connecting. Because as you can see, if you look up close, all the stitches, while they're their own stitches, they all connect and they make a final product. And I think our life is kind of like that. You know, we have different events that happen to us. We have our family and friends, we have our job, we have whatever it is, maybe, and then, of course, like, deaths happen, relationship issues happen, financial issues. There's good stuff as well, like, you know, graduations, getting your first car, you know, all that kind of stuff. Graduating college, whatever it is. There's good stuff. Getting married, having children, whatever stage of life you're at, that's going to depend on what events happen, depending on your age and all that. And then there gets to, like, I hate to be all, like, I'm not trying to be all doomy gloomy, but then your death, which will happen someday. It's just a fact of life. I'm not trying to be all depressing, but it's just a fact of life. And it kind of builds up to be this big, like, timeline. But yet, if you look really closely, like, from a distance, just looks like a big, kind of what I call a rope, right? You have your scarf. But when you look really close, there's a lot of pieces, and they all kind of connect. So that was always one thing that I found really interesting as I started getting into loom knitting and all that sort of thing, is the amount of patience. So I'm not trying to get all rambly, so I'm going to try to, like, kind of draw to a close here and, like, make my point, because we are already almost an hour in. And now that things are opened up, people probably don't have as much time to just sit and watch videos. So I say all of this to basically, as said, this is partly just a craft tutorial, because I've noticed a lot of my friends are taking up loom knitting, or not even just loom knitting, but, like, knitting in general, or different crafts. So I kind of want to show you guys personally what I do. I would encourage you, though, to go watch some more tutorials, because I've never done a tutorial before, so this is probably a really choppy, not the greatest quality tutorial, so I would encourage you to just go check out some other tutorials as well. I'm not claiming to be an expert on this. So I did this, obviously, to help out some of my friends out there that are trying to get into this. But I also did it because I've really come across some, like, spiritual things as I've started doing this. And another thing as well is I feel like God has really used this ability to do crafting things as, like, a ministry, because I've given things out at church before, and as said, like, I'm not saying this to be all like, ooh, look at me. I'm just saying that how God's used this. I give these baby hats here to our local pregnancy center. So then, you know, people that maybe aren't in the greatest financial situation, they can get access to clothing for their child or children. Usually I would also donate some of these to the hospital as well, but the hospital's not accepting donations right now because of coronavirus. Which I understand in a way. And usually I make a point in letting these sit in a tied up bag for at least 48 hours before I take them anywhere. It's just good to be safe right now with you know, the old Rona. So, and I always, like, make sure I'm washing my hands and all that. And I've also, like, wiped down my looms because they can get dusty and they get, like, lint on them from the yarn. So that you just kind of have to take precautions and use good judgment. But anyways, I say all of that to kind of give you guys an object lesson, and kind of, I guess right now with coronavirus, to kind of keep that hope going, because I think, like, some of us are getting to the point where it's like, oh, how long is this gonna go? Like, I just want to give up. But, you know, I also look at projects where maybe I almost messed up or messed up a part of it, but then I'm like, oh, this part here stressed me out, but look, great final product. So you might be in a really, like, not to be like that Christian girl that uses cliche terms, but you might be in a dry season right now. You might be in a dark time. Not even just because of coronavirus. I know, like, everybody right now is using coronavirus for everything, to explain everything. It's like, did you trip on the sidewalk today? It was probably from coronavirus. You know, like, I'm not trying to be that person that's just, like, using coronavirus as an excuse for everything. And I think that people are forgetting that during the pandemic, people are just going through hard times. Like, maybe not even necessarily because of the pandemic. Maybe it's just stuff that they're just going through even before the pandemic happened, and it's just, like, carried on into the pandemic. But I recognize that we're in a pandemic and that COVID-19 is a very real thing, and I definitely agree that we do need to, like, keep practicing all the public health stuff, but we need to, like, not forget that just because we're in a pandemic, that doesn't stop personal struggles or mental health struggles or financial issues that maybe aren't even related to the pandemic, just general personal things, family issues, relationship issues, abuse. The list goes on. And I just want to encourage you, you know, sometimes you'll find out if you start loom knitting, you will find that you will be stressed out sometimes because you'll mess up a stitch. You'll run out of yarn. You'll underestimate how much yarn you need for something. You will come across stressful situations, and it's just like that in life. You know, you're going to come across times where you make a mistake, where you do something foolish, where you run out of resources, where you run out of energy, where you get upset, whatever it is. You're going to have times like that. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I'm not saying that to be all, like, depressing. I'm just saying, once again, it's a fact of life. But, you know, as said, at the end of the day, you might not see it now, but you will have a good final product. And as I'm starting this scarf, as said, right now it doesn't look like much. It doesn't look like much. It's just a little bit of yarn on a loom. And you're like, how's that going to become a scarf? But look. So, once again, I say all this to say that if you are in a rough patch right now, things will get better. Might not be today, might not be next week, might not be for another year. I can't determine that, unfortunately. If I could, I totally would, but I don't get to make those decisions. I'm not in that position of power, so only God is. And I would just encourage you, keep running the race, don't give up, and just like with the concept of loom knitting, you might hate it for the first couple weeks. You honestly might get so frustrated and just want to put the loom down and be like, you know what, no, not for me. It's like learning how to do anything, like learning how to play an instrument. The first couple weeks, you know, you're like, oh, I don't know how to do this, I'm so dumb, like maybe I should just not even bother. And now, by all means, if you get like a few months into it and you absolutely hate it, like it's not for everybody, you might not like it, that's fine, but don't give up on the first try. Don't give up on the first project and be like, oh no, I messed up a stitch, I shouldn't do this. And it's the same thing in life. Just because you make one mistake in something, that doesn't mean that you're not meant to do that. Now, obviously, if you keep making mistakes or, you know, you just don't have a passion for it after, like, an extended amount of time, yeah, maybe reevaluate what you're doing. But don't give up on the first try. I remember hearing that phrase all the time as a kid, don't give up on the first try, and it's so true because you might get into it and actually really enjoy what you're doing, whatever it is. And I know right now I'm using the concept of loom knitting, but it can be anything in life. That you can get into it and actually realize that it's a good thing. Sometimes, you know, when we take on something that we're not familiar with, we get kind of scared. And I don't know if I've gotten into the details of this. I probably have. But I've been feeling called to start this online ministry even before coronavirus happened. But I just never really, well, I thought I didn't have the time for it. But looking back at it, I just didn't make the time for it. I really didn't know how to go about it, and I was like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm not really a high-tech person, I don't know if I could do that, you know, and I just kind of made up all these excuses. And I was like, I don't know, people probably won't even watch my videos, they'll probably think I'm dumb, like, all these things, okay? But we've been reaching people, not only people that I know, like, there's people that watch these videos that I know on a personal level, but I've went in to the, like, statistics or whatever you want to call it. We have people viewing from all over the world, watching in different languages with, like, the subtitles, sorry. We have people watching from all over the world. We have people tuning in from literally all over the world. We have people tuning in from Canada, US, Haiti, Brazil, I think there was Indonesia, I think there was even Ukraine. There was, like, all sorts of countries from all over the world, people that are tuning in. So, obviously, this is getting out there. People are getting access to this. And, you know, so, and I'd not to be one of those Christians that, like, blames the devil for everything. Like, I think we need to be careful when we throw around that phrase of, like, oh, the devil's doing this and the devil's doing that. Because we don't want to give him credit. Like, that's what he wants. He wants attention. He wants that glorification. And that attention and glorification should be directed to God, not the devil. But the fact of the matter is that sometimes when you have thoughts like, oh, I don't know, people will think this is dumb, that could actually be the devil trying to, keyword, trying to stop you from doing what God's calling you to do. But we already know who won that battle, amen? So, don't let those negative thoughts get to you. And I'm looking back at, like, you know, how I was really hesitant to start this online ministry. Because once again, I kind of had those thoughts of, like, oh, are people even going to watch my videos? They're going to think this is dumb. You know, I don't know how to do all this fancy tech stuff. I don't have all this fancy equipment, you know. And I'm not saying it's bad to have tools like that, but you don't need fancy equipment. You don't need all that stuff to just preach the gospel. Now, God can provide you with tools and resources, and if you have that equipment, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but you don't have to have all that. You just need to have a relationship with the Lord and a desire to preach the word, and, you know, God will equip you. I've done messages on this channel before. You know, God will equip you. If He knows you need something, He'll equip it, and that might be a material thing, that might be a material tool. But it's not always necessarily like that. Like, I'm not trying to do the whole prosperity gospel, like, yeah, if you pray to God, He'll give you material possessions, yeah! That's not what I'm trying to do, but, like, He can provide in that way, but it might not necessarily be a material thing, but whatever need it is, He will provide. He will provide. It's not a, oh, He'll decide if He's going to provide that one time or not. He will provide. It might not be in the way that you see it or the timing that you want. That's the one I struggle with. It's like, okay, God, you going to provide this now? Once again, patience. And that's something, like, I'm just going to admit, a lot of my friends and family out there, you know, I suck at patience. I need to work on that. But the point is, I know with, like, coronavirus, we're all kind of getting tired, and we're just like, oh, can this just go away? It's not going away anytime soon, okay? It's here. It's here for a long time. It's here for the long haul. And it's not a matter of just waiting for it to go away. It's a matter of how are we going to manage what's happening right now in our world situation, and what are the best steps that we can take for our safety and safety of everyone around us. And we can't just act like it's not happening. That's not going to make it go away. It's not going to make it better. you know, it's kind of like house chores, right? Like when you do the laundry and you fold it and you don't put it away, and you know, you just kind of go about your day. Well, not thinking about it doesn't make it go away. Eventually, you have to put it away. Eventually, you have to deal with it. So, I hope that this video has been an encouragement to you. I'm like fidgeting with my yarn. Oh my goodness. Okay. But I hope this video has been an encouragement to you. Not only if in the craft sense, if you're starting to take up knitting, but also in a spiritual sense. So if loom knitting's not really your cup of church tea, but you've been watching the whole video and you watch the devotional aspect of it, I just hope this has been an encouragement for you to keep running the race that God has set before you, to keep living out the calling that God has called you to, and just an encouragement to rely on God for your needs. And as said, I was really hesitant to start this online ministry, but I finally just had to take the plunge and say, like, God, you know, you're going to make it happen. However you want this to work, you're going to make it happen. It's not going to be through me. And that's always been one thing that I've tried to keep as the focus since starting this, because I've had people messaging me, or even like in person telling me like, oh my goodness, your videos are so good, and like blah blah blah. And it's like, I literally tell them, like, thank you, like, I appreciate the comment and everything. Compliment, not the comment. Well, I guess it is a comment. Anyway, I appreciate the compliment, but like, it's not me. It's not. And I'm not just saying that as like a cliche Christian, like, oh, the glory goes to God. Oh, no, like, I'm serious. I really have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just, I'm being honest here. I have no clue what I'm doing. I just click the record button. Like, I usually have an idea of, like, what I'm going to talk about or whatever, but I click the record button, and I'm not going to say that it's completely unscripted. Like, as said, I usually have a few notes in front of me. Like, you guys can't always see because I usually have them below the camera, but I usually have, like, a few notes to kind of refer to like, keep myself somewhat on track. Keyword, somewhat on track. You know, and I always pray before my videos of, like, what God wants me to do and stuff. So I try not to really, like, come up with video ideas in like, a human sense, but I usually just pray and, like, hey, God, what do you want me to do? And He reveals it in various ways, whether that's through scripture reading, whether that's through, like, dreams, all sorts of things. God's very creative when He's revealing things. So, I try not to just randomly, like, oh, I'm just gonna make this random video, you know. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do, just personally that's not how I feel led to go about this online ministry. Some people that works for them, and that's between you and the Lord, and, you know, we're not all meant to be the same. That's why there's, like, over 7 billion of us on this earth. We're not meant to be the same. So, that's all fine and dandy. But I'm telling you guys, since starting this online ministry, I know it's making a difference, and we're getting a lot of engagement, and I think it's been a good outlet for me as well to be able to share my faith, share my interests, and of course right now with coronavirus, doing this in a way that is safe, because I literally film from my bed most of the time, or other locations where I'm not around a lot of people. You guys can watch this at home or wherever you're out and about, social distancing, whatever. You wear this while you're out in public wearing your mask or whatever. So I think it's great that the Word of God's still getting out, but in a way that's accessible and in a way that's safe with everything going on. So anyway, I'm going to end off because I feel like I'm getting kind of rambly here, and I think we've basically covered the major points. Once again, if you do want me to continue with, like, making a series and then showing you guys how to make more things, I can also update you in the next video if I, like, progress more in this and kind of show you guys, like, see, look, this is how it progresses or whatever. Just comment below or message me or however you want to get a hold of me, and I would be happy to make a series out of this. But as said, I'm not going to do it unless people express interest in it, because I don't just want to put out stuff that's like not going to, people aren't going to respond to. So feel free to either comment or message me, however you want to get a hold of me. And if this is of interest to you, I will keep making a series about it. If not, we will move on to something else. Thank you for watching this video. If you have not had a chance to subscribe, if you're watching from YouTube, feel free to subscribe, drop a like, turn on your notifications. If you're watching from Facebook, drop a like on the Facebook page. And share this with your friends and family. Get as many people connected as possible. Once again, I say this like every video, but we want the gospel to be getting out to as many people as possible. Not that it's about numbers. I'm not really so much concerned with like the number of likes on the page out of like self-glorification, like, oh, look how many likes are on my online ministry page. But the way I see it is, hey, that's many people that are getting the gospel online. That's my thing. It's not like a, hey guys, like my page so I can like have more self-validation. It's just like the page, because then it's like we know that that's another person accessing the gospel online. So definitely share this with your friends and family. Do all the stuff. I'm going to have some contact information in the description of an email address that you can reach me at if you have any questions, concerns. If you have any prayer requests, feel free to also comment those, or if you want them to be private, then just email or message me on Facebook. You can message the ministry page on Facebook as well. And just so you guys know, if you're hesitant to send stuff, I'm the only one on like the page as like an administrator or whatever. So anything that you don't want like publicly shared, you can just email or message me if you don't want to comment and like everybody see it. And I will keep your stuff confidential. I'm going to be the only one seeing it because I don't have any other people running the page. And if I ever do have any other people running the page, I will be completely transparent with you guys on that. Because I know with online stuff and online security, people are very hesitant sometimes to share things, and that's completely understandable. But I just want you guys to know that if you're emailing the ministry, the online ministry email address, or messaging the Facebook page, I'm the only one that sees it. I don't have anybody else as like an administrator or anything on the page. I'm the one that sees it. And anything that you want to stay private will be private. Obviously there's some things like out of my control, like if like something went wrong, but like it's highly unlikely with all the security measures and that sort of thing that I also have set for the page. But anyways, feel free to reach out if you have any questions, concerns, prayer requests, whatever it is. I'd be happy to get connected with you, chat with you online, or if you're local, I will also, if you happen to be around, I can also chat with you in person in a social distance manner. But if you're non-local, I would like to get connected with you online. Alright, well, stay safe out there, guys. The coronavirus cases are going up, but we have a mighty God, and we're going to trust in Him. We're not going to live in fear. Still follow public health guidelines, all that. I'm not trying to be one of those, like, COVID conspiracy theorists. It's like, hey guys, COVID's not real, and you're sheeple, and, like, just do whatever you want. Like, no, guys, still wash your hands, do all the stuff, do all the social distancing stuff. I'm not discrediting that, but, God has not given us a spirit of fear. Amen. So, go out there and be the church. Not all the churches have reopened, like the church buildings. But one thing we have learned through coronavirus is that church is not a building. We are the church. So I'm going to end off. Go out there and be the church. Have a good day.